The personal opinion I've developed is you introduce new people to D&D by not playing D&D. Welcome to the Hobby Hangout with Asu and Dave. Today's episode is about how to introduce new people to D&D.
Yeah.
And I think what I want to talk to is about I don't know if you'd call it an event. No, what would you call it? A gathering?
Well, we were just getting together. Then you kind of like corner them into, let's play a role game.
No, I
role
didn't
playing
corner
game.
them into the.
Yeah, I don't think you asked anyone. I'm pretty sure you said, hey, print these sheets. And then, they just did it. And we were
Oh.
there. We were like, okay, let's play this.
No.
That's how I saw it.
That's how you saw it. That's not how it occurred.
We're going to have to check with them to
Yeah.
see what they felt.
Because I pulled out Panda Pirates, Party Panda Pirates.
Yes.
And I said, let's play this. And then our friend, she pulled the goblin sheets and she's like, what about this? And
I
I was
don't know,
like,
I don't know
okay.
if she just meant as in, let's actually play this, or if
Yeah.
it was more of a, remember, you asked us to print this stuff.
She was interested, so we pulled that out and started playing that.
Okay.
But yeah, so our topic here that I've chosen is sort of how do you introduce new players to D&D? And after our gaming event over the weekend, the personal opinion I've developed is you introduce new people to D&D by not playing D&D.
That's like the best part of our topic, and then you just said it right away.
Yeah, right away.
You should have saved it for the end.
But what to me that means is just looking at people that do not play role-playing games, have never experienced that. Maybe they've heard of it or seen it, but they've never actually taken part in it. I can see that something like D&D or Pathfinder, like a large role-playing game system, is going to be overwhelming or can be overwhelming. And not just from the playing perspective, but just starting and having to create your character and thinking of what we went through with like getting your character, my brother and my sister and everybody when we did our campaign.
For D&D.
Yeah, for D&D. And like it was enjoyable, but it took a very large time investment. Now we kind of all agreed that we were going to do this, and we took the time to do it individually and prep. So I think it was still enjoyable, but the fact that it took time over a period of days or weeks even isn't something that you can do ad hoc with
And
a
without
net new
even
group.
knowing if it's something that you will enjoy doing.
Exactly, yeah. And especially when you're getting into gamers that like are barely even board gamers, right?
Yeah, so we had while we were with our friends, there was someone who stopped by who I don't believe is a board gamer.
Yeah.
And
But they were looking to hang out for the evening.
yeah, of course. And so, she got into it. And we'll talk more about how it evolved, but I think that it was interesting to see the perspective, I guess, or how people play the game, both from people that we know that enjoy playing games and from people that are not as interested in games as we are.
Yeah, so I think what we played with everybody was Goblin Quest. So it's obviously a very light system. It's not intended to be, in-depth character building, and very light on the DM side. It's sort of everybody is contributing to the development of the story. But also the premise of the game is all very light, right? You're expected to die. You're given several characters. It's all very silly and nothing's seriously about power and strength and things like that. It's just trying to do mundane things, nothing too epic, but just sort of like the difficulty of trying to accomplish those things around monsters and creatures that are more powerful than you, and failing your tests and what funny things or mishaps can occur. So that's why I liked the Goblin Quest system. It's very lightweight. It's very easy to introduce everyone, and the fact that it leans into sort of that comedy and fun aspect, I think makes it easier for non-gamers to relate to, and be able to engage in it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, trying to build a serious fantasy
Yeah.
character and interact in this fantasy world that maybe you don't really buy into, right?
I also like how it only uses the one die, or sometimes two, but it's just the regular six-sided die.
Yeah.
Because even though, like, I guess for me when I play D&D, every time that I have to roll a different type of die, I'm always going around like, which one is this? Like, I can never get familiarized enough with the other type of sided dice. And so it's just easy, right? Because it's like you're not suddenly having to introduce a new type of die to someone that has never played with any
Yeah.
others, right? And knowing that for absolutely everything, you're just rolling your one die.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to be fair, the D8, the D10, and the D12 do look fairly similar, right? Especially if you don't see one of the high numbers right away, you gotta sometimes have to look and see which one it is.
The other thing that I think that this is the part that might be a bit of not a drawback, but I think that it requires some thought and it could potentially slow down the setup is setting up what is your objective for the campaign, right? And I think that, you after we play, 2-3 times with the kids, you kind of understood how to structure the different tasks and objectives.
Yeah.
Which I think that you struggled with the very first time that we
Yes,
played
yeah.
it. Yeah, so I think that if you hadn't had that experience, though, if we had tried to figure it out with them for the first time, I think that they might have become engaged.
Yeah, I think it would have slowed down the
Mhm.
starting for sure.
But yeah, knowing that, like, I think that, so yes, it's a little bit more of a setup for someone to like have that structure, but at the same time, it's like someone coming up with whatever objective, right? And just making that your campaign. It was pretty funny, right? Like
Yeah.
what people came up with.
And I don't know if you heard sort of the introduction that I was giving to everyone, just the several games that we played now. I kind of approached it almost like I wouldn't say teacher or educator, but like setting the right expectations before we started. Like even before we started into getting our characters, I went over, a role-playing game, you don't need to act. You don't need to try and create somebody and act as that person. And sort of setting that expectation that as we're playing through this, the characters that you're creating, the information that you're describing around your characters is there so that you can sort of think through how that character would act. Not so much that you have to take on that persona and act it out, right? And I think that helped quite a bit.
I'm gonna be honest. I have heard you because I think the antojitos were out, so I was focused on my antojitos. But yeah, I kind of remember a little bit of that as one of the first things that you said, and then I tuned you out. What else did you say?
No, I think that to me, I felt like it was an important piece of information, and I definitely felt like it played out in our game. Like whenever our friends spitting on the one goblin because of their name being more than one syllable. So even though they were successful in some of their challenges, the one character was spitting on the other character just because they don't like them.
Well, I guess you gotta give a little bit more context, right? So for your character name, you gotta pick one syllable because if you pick more than that, then they're
Goblins,
despised.
goblins are frowned upon with more than one syllable.
Yeah, and so it was funny because it was our daughter, the one that had the two syllable names, and I felt like the adults were not gonna like go forward with that two syllable thing, and yeah, they were spitting on her. She loved it though.
And I liked how, later on in the game, one of the goblins of our friend, he had described them as being like fidgety and lost, right? And those were the actions that he started taking with that character. They were not helpful in any way, shape, or form. They were essentially not wasting, but like they were not benefiting us in terms of trying to accomplish our quest. But he was committed to having that character do these things, right? Which was, I found it fun. And as you mentioned, the one player that wasn't really that much into board games, just seeing her start to get more comfortable with it and slowly see how it was very approachable because there wasn't anything too complex. And when you're failing, just describing how you're failing and what may have occurred in the area, how you may have impacted some of the other characters. and her goblin with the third arm throwing things around. um, I enjoyed it from. I know it's not a full DM role, but just introducing it to everybody, I did enjoy it. Now I know the game isn't built to play with. Technically, it's not built to play with that many characters. I think we had 8 people playing. It's not intended to scale to that size, but I mean, aside from it being a little longer than normal, I think it still played fairly well. I know I ended up shortening the last task because it was dragging on a little bit too long with that many characters, but um, I don't know. Overall, I still found it an enjoyable experience.
Yeah, it was good. And I think just again going back to the silliness of it, I think that that's what really made it approachable, right? And people to want to continue, like to really get into it, right? Because I think if we had gone for a D&D, for example, I don't think that we would have made it to more than a few rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it plays fast, and it was funny that, like when bad things were happening, they were taking it seriously. So instead of like trying to get to achieve the objective, they were playing to, okay, if something bad has to happen, then something bad is gonna happen, and they were like really going for it. So yeah, that was fun. Not playing to win, but rather
Exactly. I
playing for
think
the
that's
story.
yeah. And tracking how many of our goblins died. I think they
Oh yeah, we had a
18
cemetery.
yeah, a little cemetery. 18 goblins died during the game. And I mean, nearing the end, I felt like that's what people were almost trying to do, is see how many of their goblins could get killed in the process.
Oh, I think there was one of our friends whose goblin lasted almost until the end, right?
Yes,
Like
yeah.
the drunk goblin. And it wasn't fair because some of us had lost like at least 2 goblins.
Yeah.
And we were like, seriously?
So for anyone that's not familiar with it, Goblin Quest overall is as I mentioned, a lighter RPG where you have a clutch of 5 goblins, and everybody gets to sort of design what each of their goblins is. They have an heirloom that's special to them, but completely useless and powerless in the game in general. And then overall, each goblin only has 2 health, so as they fail, they die, and you move on to the next one. And the game is structured with sort of those 3 main tasks, and each task is split up into sort of 3 steps, and you're just trying to get successes on each step until you can complete it. And the whole sort of story and world building is intended to be by the group, which I think also helps drive that level of engagement. Again, not that D&D is bad in that part, but it can be obviously a much heavier lift for the DM. And if the world and story they create doesn't connect with you as a character, you're just not going to enjoy it, right? So the fact that everybody's sort of contributing to first identify, okay, what is it that we want to do and how are we going to do it? Makes sure everyone understands it right from the start and has some say in it. Again, it's nothing complex. I think what we were doing, we were making
wine and
throwing a party, yeah. Which turned out incredibly hard to do for our little goblins, but we got there.
People were really trying to get cheese, which at the end,
yeah.
we didn't get the cheese. That was not the objective anyway.
No, yeah. We were committed to getting cheese for a while there. Cost us a few goblin lives.
Yeah. The other thing too is that when you're, like, for example, when we play D&D and like, you have your sheet where you can draw your character, it's like you gotta start from the beginning. I'm like, I can draw, right? And so it just didn't feel like, for me, like my character is just a piece of paper with a lot of writing in it for D&D. Whereas in this one, you already have your goblin, all of the goblins look the same, and it's about just decorating it.
Yeah.
And I think that people, it seemed like they enjoy doing it because then you can infuse some of either your personality or, something that just seems very funny to you, right? So I can remember the one that I made with the skimpy underwear. So it's just, you get to make it as fun as you want to.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it's accessible to everyone, right? You just have to draw very minimal things and not draw a full-on like face and worry about body proportions. So it makes it a little bit more fun, I think.
Yes. When I think someone had 2 belly buttons, right?
Yeah.
And you decided with two mouths.
Yeah,
Yours
I
was
had
much
2 mouths.
weirder. Two
And
belly
then,
buttons was not so weird.
but then the other player, she had the one goblin with 3 belly buttons.
Oh, really? I didn't notice
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because then the other one was like, why are you
Oh.
judging my 2 belly buttons if your one goblin has 3 of them? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that. No. But yeah, I think to me it was a good event. It definitely drove engagement. Everyone participated right to the end of the game, and at the end of the game when we were cleaning up and everything, I broached the topic. So if everyone enjoyed this, maybe next time we should start looking at D&D, and definitely got several individuals. I don't know if the non-gamer, I didn't catch her response, but
She was probably like,
yeah.
okay, I'm just gonna go now.
Definitely there was interest from other players. Now, whether or not we take that next step, I think that's obviously, as I said, it requires a commitment, right? And just based on our previous experience, if we do go that route, I'd still want to connect with each person individually to create their characters versus trying to do it in a group, because that's just not effective.
Yeah. Might take us a whole year to get time for each of us to create a character.
But overall, to me, this was, I'm really enjoying Goblin Quest as that sort of gateway into role-playing games. I kind of just stumbled across it when I was looking for things that we could try, and it's very quickly become one of my favorite games to play.
I mean, even the kids really like it.
Yeah. And I know our son, who's only 6, has expressed, like when he heard that we were playing D&D, but he wasn't playing, he was kind of like asking, well, when can I make my character? And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it with him. It's just, I know he's not going to really enjoy the gameplay aspect quite as much, just due to the duration of how long a game takes, right? He's not someone that's going to have that level of attention span to just one thing. Especially not when it's spanning multiple hours. So this is something that he enjoys and he's played, and I can see we can continue to build on that and eventually introduce him to longer games, longer role-playing games. I don't know if we spoke about the last time we played with the kids, because that one ended up we took on a pretty epic quest, I would say. So we decided that we were going to get our clutch of goblins to actually lead a war of orcs and hobgoblins and bugbears. Like, we were going to lead an army to war, which seemed near impossible. But by the end, we actually managed to get them all riled up, and my son's goblin was the one that was leading the charge.
Yeah.
And we had everybody was cheering him on and chanting his name. What was his name again? Scritch or Scratch, right?
Scratch, yes.
Yeah, they were chanting Scratch, Scratch, and then he got killed.
But then the new goblin that spawned,
Red.
like he also had a really good role, and then after that everyone was like, red.
Yeah.
And so that's all our son wants to talk about now. He's like, but do you remember the last time that we played? What's the thing that you most remember about it?
So yeah, it created good memories, a good story, right? A good story that we can relate to and bring up and discuss over time. But yeah, I think it's something that we can continue to play.
In this last one, it was funny how one of our friends was having really successful roles with the wizards to the point where it was like, we were calling her the wizard whisperer.
I think, as I said at the beginning of the video, my take on introducing new players, people that have never played a role-playing game before, you shouldn't introduce them to D&D. That's just my personal opinion. And I guess maybe you, reflecting back on again, not that we didn't enjoy the D&D, do you think it would have made more sense to introduce you to something like this?
I think it depends on who you're playing with. So, for example, with the kids, definitely I wouldn't enjoy playing D&D. Oh, well, I mean, our daughter is playing, but our son, like, we will have to break it apart into too many smaller chunks that I don't think it will be as much fun.
Do you think you would have prefer to have been introduced to role-playing games through Goblin Quest versus that first D&D game that we played?
No, well, that's what I was going at, right? Is that because we had other people that wanted to try D&D, it didn't feel like we were heavy lifting necessarily because everyone else had already committed to trying D&D. It just didn't feel that bad. But if we're thinking back on like that first time when we tried D&D like several years ago, then yes, something like Golden Quest will have gotten much better. And like I mentioned before, for me, building a story is not something that is easy for me to do. So with the Goblin Quest, having like tried to make it silly, it's a lot easier to make silly stories rather than a story that you want it to be like epic or, you know, to resonate with the other players and take it seriously.
I guess that kind of made me think on something. Because in Goblin Quest, after you've sort of identified the tasks of the team, everybody already has that understanding of what the story entails, right? Versus in D&D, it's unraveling as you go, right? So you don't know what's going to happen. So that open world approach of D&D, I think, can be overwhelming to someone who's never played, right? Whereas you don't have quite that problem in Goblin Quest. So you can see the goal, you can see the steps to get there, you understand what you're trying to do as a group, and you're still creating a narrative and a story, but you have the bigger picture in mind already, right? So yeah, I can see how that could probably improve the experience from a first-time gamer.
But I think if someone is really interested in trying D&D,
oh yeah, absolutely.
like if they really want to try it, then I think they're gonna make it work, right? Because it's something that they're really invested in, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you want to try to convince someone to play RPGs, then D&D is probably too.
Yeah, I think that's the approach I'm taking from this conversation is, as someone that enjoys role-playing games, how do I bring this to people that have never played role-playing games before, right? And I think the best approach is to go through something light. Let them get a little taste and then ask for more.
You already asked them, right? If they want to play D&D now.
Yeah. So that's the end goal. We'll get there. Whether or not we end up playing D&D or perhaps the newer system that's coming out next month. So looking forward to that and diving in there.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe we'll find something else too and just give different systems a try and see which one we like the most.
Exactly.
One of our friends was saying that she was part of the My Little Pony that you played a while ago, right?
Yeah. I don't think they're up for playing My Little Pony again. But
it wasn't as fun as Goblin Quest.
No. Yeah.
We'll see when we can convince them to play another time.
Yeah. Although I might be up for playing Goblin Quest one more time with everybody.
Yeah.
Before we dive into something more serious and long term, because
yes. Yeah. Especially with all the kids' activities and stuff, it's really hard to find
during the
the
summer.
time.
Yes.
Hard to find the time to sit down for so many hours and just play the one game.
I think as summer comes, we're going to shift it to different activities. I know we've been talking with our kids about doing some crafting, so looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everyone that tuned in today. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Let us know in the comments if you have any thoughts about what we discussed or how you have introduced people to RPGs.
Yeah. Give Goblin Quest a try and definitely leverage those easier systems to introduce non-role-playing game players to the wonderful world of role-playing games.
And you can even do it like him. Just go there the one time and, you lure them with, hey, let's do a miniature painting. And everyone is like, yay. And then you're done and you're like, okay, here, we printed all of this stuff. Let's give RPGs a try.
Yep. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.